Members of the public and members of the conference committee, today we will have nonpartisan staff walk through the side-by-side documents, and then we will discuss adopting the same and similar provisions in the House and Senate versions of the bill. Our fiscal research teams will go through each provision to make sure all of our members are clear on the provisions we are discussing and have a chance to ask questions as they arise. We will also be accepting testimony from members of the public. So without further ado, we will begin our nonpartisan walkthrough. I will call upon Nathan Hopkins from House Research.
We're actually going to go to Lewis Hunter.
Never mind. We are actually going to go to Lewis Hunter, Senate Counsel. Mr. Hunter, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the conference committee. I will do my best to go through the document, which at the top should say policy language comparison. There are some Senate-only provisions, House-only provisions, and many that are the same or the same with minor technical differences. And I will pay a little bit more attention to the provisions that are only on from one body or only from the other or are different, and give more high level to the same and similar provisions. So starting on the reviser's page 1, you have a Senate-only provision starting on the Senate's lines 2.2 for paid blood donation. And here the Senate provides 3 hours of paid leave for Minnesota State College and university employees to give blood every year. Moving on to a provision that spans revisor page 1 and 2, there's also a Senate-only provision starting on Senate lines 2.12 relating to the higher education attainment goal. This updates the goal for the 2040 calendar year to raise the goal to 75% of residents between the ages of 24 and 55, and does some changes to the reporting requirements and the agencies which collaborate to estimate what that higher education attainment is. Moving on to revisor page 2, starting on the Senate lines 3.28. This is a provision related to athletic fees, which prohibits Minnesota State college and university institutions from charging fees or increasing tuition to pay student athletes, and requests the University of Minnesota consider adopting a similar policy. Is Mr. Hopkins here? Mr. Chair, if I could have Mr. Hopkins jump in. He's going to address the House-only provision here, and our plan was to trade off from there, but of course at the discretion of the chair.
I recognize Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Chair and members, on R2 of the side-by-side, there is a House-only provision beginning on House lines 2.2. This creates a new statute regarding developmental courses. It requires public post-secondary institutions to provide an explanation to students of the difference between developmental and credit earning courses. Moving on, there is a essentially identical provision on R2 to R3 regarding eligibility for the American Indian Scholars Program. There's a small technical difference between the two sides, and staff has recommended the Senate language for this provision. If you'll recognize Mr. Hunter to continue with the Senate-only provisions.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I recognize Mr. Hunter.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Moving on to pages R3 through 6, and beginning on Senate line 7.10. These provisions relate to pregnant and parenting students. While they are largely the same, the Senate language adds a definition of priority registrations, which has further considerations on page R5. And on page R6, there is Senate-only language beginning on Senate line 7.24 with requirements related to online program management companies. There's an extension of an exemption for certain contracts that some higher education institutions enter with online program management companies that's extended for 2 years, I believe. And it applies to contracts entered into on or before July 1st, 2023. This begins a rather large section of what you'll see is unhighlighted on your sheet, beginning on page R6. This is because these elements are largely the same. So again, as I indicated, I will be slightly high level here. Starting on page R6, there is the consolidated student aid reporting. This is agency language and removes and adds from the list of programs who are all going to be under the umbrella of the data reporting structure in 136A.053. On R7, this relating to the summer academic enrichment report. Again, this ties in that report requirement to the underlying structure of what you find in 136A.053. On page R7 through 8, there's a change to replace the term resident of Minnesota with a defined term elsewhere in statute of resident student. On R8, again, same language between the two sides related to fraud or denial of funding, providing that an applicant could be denied funding if they present false information, refuse to allow inspection, or have been determined by a court to have committed fraud. Also on R8, another reference, this time in the grants for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, to bring it under the umbrella of that data reporting structure I've referred to a couple times before. Also on R8 through R9, same, bringing it under the umbrella of the reporting structure for the Fostering Independence grants, sometimes called FIG. On R9, another similar change, replacing resident of Minnesota with resident student for under the child care grants part of statute. And then going to page R10, there's a under the underrepresented student teacher grants, again bringing this part under the reporting structure, but there's also a requirement added to report that information to the E12 Finance and Policy Committees of the legislature. Also on R10, student teacher grants in shortage areas, brings it under the reporting structure, but keeps a requirement to collect information about licensure areas in school districts, and adds a similar requirement to report that information to the appropriate committees in the legislature. Page R10 through to 11, this is another deleting existing language about reporting requirements and in favor of this umbrella structure in 136A.053. On R11 through 12, this section relating to work-study grants removes the priority for work-study programs given to students enrolled for 12 credits or more, and eliminates some other provisions relating to who the work-study students need to be employed by. On R12, dual training competency grants. This just changes the definition of eligible training. On R13, getting into, and this will be a section, start referring to the Minnesota Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. This changes the definition of institution for purposes of that act. And then before, I'll hand it over again to Mr. Hopkins here in a second, if the chair will allow. But on page R13 through 14, again, in the Post-Secondary Education Act, this is a section that clarifies the schedule and types of data that a school must submit to register with the Office of Higher Education. And then I see that's a House-only provision coming up. So I'd pass it back, Mr. Chair, if you'll allow.
Recognize Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Chair and members, on R14 of your side-by-side, beginning on the House lines 13.23, there is a House-only provision amending the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. This strikes an exception for accreditation reports regarding what kind of documents the office can disclose to law enforcement or in connection with legal proceedings. The House also has a similar House-only provision on R31 that makes an equivalent change within the Private Career School Act. Continuing on from R14 to R16 of the side-by-side, there's a series of identical provisions, also amending the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. These come from the Office of Higher Education's agency bill, and they are identical between the two bodies. But on R17 of the side-by-side, there is a difference between the two bodies. While the sections are largely identical, the Senate adds a provision, you can see it at the Senate language at 23.9, that requires OHE to review registration fees collected and the administrative costs of registrations. And that's analogous to some other Senate-only language on R27 regarding initial license applications and at R32. There's a minor technical difference between 23.11 of the Senate language and 16.28 of the House language, just cross-referencing some paragraphs, and staff recommends the Senate language on that difference. Mr. Chair and members, now we're moving on to, beginning on R18 of the side-by-side, a series of identical sections that amend the Private Career School Act, which deals with OHE's licensure of private career schools. One thing to point out on R19 to R21, just for clarification for the conference committee. So this side-by-side is pulling in actually 3 separate bills. So you can see that these two sections ultimately are completely identical to each other. If you combine the Senate file 4059, the third engrossment, you can see the Senate's changes on that bill that begin on R20 at Senate line, what's 25.1, about halfway down the page. So when these changes to this section, 136A 821 subdivision 5, are all taken together, the position of the two chambers is identical between them. On R23 to R26, this is also a change to the Private Career Schools Act. The sections are in essence identical. However, the House language formats some of these financial reporting requirements as a table, and the reviser of statute has informed nonpartisan staff that that is not the preferred formatting. And these requirements have just been rewritten, not in table form in the Senate language, and so staff, to conform to the reviser's request, recommends the Senate language between those two sections. On R26 to R27 of the side-by-side, again, these sections are essentially identical. There's a small grammatical difference that you can see highlighted on the House language at 24.14, and staff's recommended the House language for that technical difference. Mr. Chair, if you'll please acknowledge Mr. Hunter to cover the subsequent Senate-only provision.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I recognize Mr. Hunter.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. So beginning on R27, this is again in the Private Career School Act. The Senate makes application fees under the Private Career School Act refundable and directs OHE to review the fees that they collect, which pay for administrative expenses, and then look at both of that and the expenses covered by the end of its fiscal year. And then moving on R27 to 28 and subsequent sections through approximately R31, we have similar language for both bodies relating to minimum standards for receiving a license with regard to private career schools, what information that a private career school needs to provide to OHE, the Office of Higher Education, prior to issuance of a license, changes to how student records are retained under the Private Career School Act, and also an option for some schools to send records to OHE to reduce the duration of the retention of those records. Same provisions related to limited licensure, how private schools can fulfill those requirements for a limited license. And then on R31, beginning Senate lines 30.1 and on House lines 29.15, There's a similar but technically different provision related to data privacy and financial records. Both chambers added language about how financial records would be disclosed and accreditation reports. The House added a subdivision providing that the office would not disclose these records or reports received as part of an application except as specified. The Senate instead classified the records as non-public data under Chapter 13. And staff has recommended the Senate version of that data privacy provision. And then, Mr. Chair, if you'll recognize Mr. Hopkins, the next portion has to do with a House-only language.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I recognize Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Chair and members, on R31 of the side-by-side, you'll see a House-only provision, Section 42 of the House language at 29.22. This adds a subdivision within the Private Career Schools Act to align it with the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. So that is similar to the House's change at R14. On R32, again, still within the Private Career School Act, there's a difference between the two chambers' approach on this section. The House language has provided a separate schedule for the submission of certain financial documents as part of a license renewal application. The Senate also strikes language making the renewal fee non-refundable, and the House retains that language. The Senate adds a provision requiring OHE to review licensure fees collected and the administrative costs of renewal licensures. As the committee has already heard about, that's analogous to Senate-only language that's also at R27 regarding initial license applications and to the Senate language at R17. Continuing on, there's a number of other changes to the Private Career School Act from OHE's agency bill. These provide some technical and administrative changes to the Private Career School Act, some of which are in response to the Office of Higher Education's litigation regarding the content of courses and the requirements for licensure. So those similar identical provisions continue on to R41, all the changes to the Private Career School Act. And then beginning on R41, these also are provisions from the Office of Higher Education's agency bill. But on R41, we begin amending at Chapter 136G, the college savings plan. There are two identical provisions on R41 to R42, making technical and administrative changes to the college savings plan chapter. Finally, on R42, again amending the college savings plan. This section has a very small, minor grammatical difference at 39.10 of the Senate language. It's highlighted. Staff recommends the House language for that minor technical difference. Now, Mr. Chair, if you'll acknowledge Mr. Hunter to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I recognize Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Beginning on R42, there are multiple Senate-only provisions. Starting on Senate lines 39.12, there's a provision from the Senate requiring the governor to appoint a candidate to fill a vacancy on the Board of Regents of the University of Minnesota who's been recommended by the Joint Legislative Committee if the legislature has not already elected a person to fill that vacancy. And then on R42 as well, starting on Senate lines 39.19, there's a prohibition or a request from the Senate that the University of Minnesota prohibit for-profit entities from controlling curriculum at the University Medical School. And related to that, there's another provision starting on Senate lines 39.26 that the Senate requires the university to submit a report about for-profit funds used to pay for faculty salaries or otherwise support medical school courses or initiatives. And Mr. Chair, if you would recognize Mr. Hopkins, there will be some House-only language coming up here.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. I recognize Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. To wrap up here on R43 of the side-by-side, there is a House-only provision on House Lines 40.25. This makes a change to unemployment insurance aid. The Office of Higher Education distributes unemployment insurance aid funded by the legislature to the tribal colleges, and this removes the Office of Higher Education from a provision governing how to respond when the amount of a legislative appropriation for that unemployment insurance aid is insufficient to cover the actual amount of aid required under the statute. So that provision now would only apply to the Board of Trustees for Minnesota State colleges and universities. The next House-only provisions on R43 extending to R46 are appropriation changes. The House amends Min-State's appropriation from last year's budget to add a new ongoing appropriation of $1.5 million in fiscal year 2027 for an identity verification system to combat enrollment fraud. That's also known as the Ghost Student provision. It also specifies that contracts for the system are subject to the Government Data Practices Act. The second change that the House-only provision makes is an additional $5,000 in one-time funding in fiscal year 2027 for reforestation at Bemidji State University after the windstorm on that campus. On R46, there's an identical provision that was added on the floors of both chambers regarding Rochester Community and Technical College and a lease agreement with the City of Rochester. And the final section for on R46 are the repealers, and they are identical between both chambers. Mr. Chair, that concludes the walkthrough of the side-by-side.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter and Mr. Hopkins. Members, do we have any questions for our nonpartisan staff? All right, seeing none, we will now review and adopt the same and similar provisions within the two bills. All right, I move to adopt the same and similar provisions and direct nonpartisan staff to make any technical corrections. Is there any member discussion to the motion? Senator Overby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify there were a few adjustments that I had been in conversation with OHE and the Minnesota Private Colleges Council about regarding R3 through 6, pregnant and parenting discrimination. One is just a small amendment adding student in, and then another is just clarifying that the priority registration applies to those private institutions as well. So I'm not sure what the plan was, if we were going to just adopt the same and similars and then take amendments after, or if we needed to take this piece out. I just want to make sure we're doing it correct procedurally.
Thank you, Senator. Our plan is to adopt the same and similars and then take a look at any amendments that will be brought forward. Thank you for the question. Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of adopting the same and similar provisions, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails, and the same and similar provisions are adopted. Okay, now we will go to public testimony. Are there any members of the public who wish to testify?
Mr. Chair, while they're coming up, no problem. I just wanted to clarify that while...
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While we adopted the same and similars, that includes accepting the staff recommendations as well? For the...
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, welcome. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. For the record, my name is Sydney Spreck, And I am a political affairs coordinator at the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, or MAPE. MAPE is a union of over 18,000 workers at Minnesota's agencies, boards, commissions, and at Minnesota state colleges and universities. I want to thank the Senate for including language related to paid leave for annual blood donation. This language is a simple fix to create parity between state employees who work at Minnesota state colleges and the rest of the state agency employees. We hope that this will provide some modest flexibility for our members at the colleges and encourage broader participation in blood donation and plasma donation. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. At this point, I would like to ask Commissioner Olson from the Office of Higher Education to please come to the testimony testifiers table. Thank you very much, Commissioner Olson. Welcome to Conference Committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Dennis Olson. I serve as the Commissioner of the Minnesota Office of Higher Education. I just want to first and foremost, Mr. Chair and conferees, thank you for the efficient adoption of all the same and similar language. Majority of the bill was pretty uniform between the House and the Senate, and we greatly appreciate that. From the language we proposed from our agency policy bill. I know there was a little bit of difference between some of the processes in terms of how the provisions proceeded through the Senate and how they moved through the House, but in the end here, there's just a few minor things I believe that we had proposed to continue working through, but overall, just want to express my appreciation to both committees prior to getting to this process, but of course now the conference committee and the conferees taking that action. We really appreciate it. I will also just mention I'm here available if we start to work through some of the potential amendments under consideration or language differences. I'll do my best to help clarify those different positions and offer a preference if requested. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So thank you for being here. And I do have a question, Commissioner. There's a Senate-only provision specifically about the higher education attainment goal. That was not something that we discussed in the House, and I'm wondering, I believe that's underneath your jurisdiction, if you could speak to that. And I do see that the attainment goal has been raised from 70 to 75 as one example. If you could speak to that. And I know that it's expiring, so I understand, why we're doing this, but not only are we extending it in this version, but also increasing it. If you could speak to that, please.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick, really appreciate the question. This was something that came up in the Senate only, and we were, of course, supportive. This is an opportunity for us to, again, extend our attainment goal and redesign it a little bit. So previously, our goal that was set by the legislature in 2015 was a 10-year goal. It did expire in 2025. We at the time had one of the most lofty and aspirational goals, I think, in the nation, setting our goal at 70% of Minnesotans age 25 to 44 attaining some sort of post-secondary credential beyond high school. It was known as a higher education attainment goal. This new proposed version that's in the Senate-only side extends the attainment goal a little bit and creates what is being known as an educational attainment goal. So bringing in new agencies to partner, DCYF, bringing in the leadership of the Minnesota P20 partnership, looking at, of course, pushing again a little bit of an aspirational goal from 70 to 75, and also making some adjustments in terms of the metrics that we track. So previously it was attainment, degrees, certificates, industry recognized credentials. We realized throughout, some of the metrics that were being tracked were kind of pretty wide estimates at best, and so we're trying to narrow that down a little bit in collaboration with the State Demographer's Office. But the ability to set an education attainment goal means, we're taking a look backwards a little bit, including metrics from high school and early childhood as well, really taking more of a whole family look and tracking some metrics beyond race and ethnicity, looking at economic development regions, regions throughout the state, rural and urban, as well as disaggregated by gender, because we see those differences in higher education attainment as well. So this is something numerous states are considering, kind of revamping, redesigning, or re-upping their attainment goals, and we certainly want to be part of that national movement with some technical assistance from available partners as well throughout the process.
Thank you, Commissioner. Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and I also saw they were expanding the age range too. It looked like you're going up to 55 years old. So if I remember correctly, I think we landed at 68, or I think it was 68% of the 70% overall. And I believe the white Caucasian category was the highest, and then it, down to the very lowest, which I think was Native American. So where, do you remember, can you just let us know kind of where we landed with all of that after 10 years of effort? All the categories that we track.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick. I don't have the most recent report in front of me to walk through all of the data. I do know overall our attainment rate was 63.5 at the end, and you are correct. Some disaggregated groups did exceed that number. Some overperformed, and the original statute language instructed us to look at 30% and 50% benchmarks as well in an annual report, and that's something that this language also instructs OHE to continue to do, but again, expand the regions a little bit. To your question about expansion of the age range, really bringing the age down from 25 to 24, lets us look at really that kind of 150% of completion for new college graduates, so essentially a 6-year graduation rate. A majority of students will be 24 at that point in the workforce. And then expanding from age 44 to 55 still also considers working adults that are still mid-career. And it will capture, that true solid 10 years of wage data, making sure that all that entire age range helps inform some of those workforce readiness metrics that that ultimately lead into where the attainment goal takes us in terms of policy development.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Final question. So does this take any additional appropriation for your agency, or is it shifted to a different state agency to Children and Families?
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Representative Rarick, there's no additional funds requested through the bill. There weren't any additional appropriations that were established in the first goal. So it's essentially continuing work that we already do, reporting requirements, and then for inclusion of the P20 partnership, this is really their sweet spot and role in convening and stakeholder engagement and really working in the seams of education. And a lot of their partners that are members of the partnership, will likely be appropriate members here to engage in terms of stakeholder engagement.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm very interested in moving this forward. I actually went to a lot of those meetings, the attainment goal meetings, and got to see the statistics as they kind of marched along. I'm not sure that, a 75% goal, I mean, it's an attainment goal, but that seems a little high considering kind of the track that we had been on, but maybe expanding the age ranges helps with that. I'm not really sure, but those are my thoughts about it. I don't know if some of my colleagues have thoughts. That, especially on the House side, that we haven't heard this and maybe haven't been here very long to even know what the attainment goals are. And I suppose we've had some presentations, but we've got some pretty new members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. Further questions for Commissioner Olson? I recognize Senator Amover-Baton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the conversation about the statewide attainment goal. The Minnesota P20 partnership has a number of members, including members of the legislature. I've been the Senate appointee. I know we had a lot of discussions there around needing to look at kind of breaking down that information and those benchmarks in a variety of ways. And a lot of that came from some of the members of the partnership, including like the Chamber of Commerce and the Minnesota Business Partnership, looking at some of those economic factors as well. So I think there's a lot of thought put into that. And the P20 partnership is ready to continue to look at the attainment goal and make recommendations to help us actually achieve it. And there's a really helpful graph when you look at the Education Attainment Goal 2025 webpage on OHE right now, just kind of showing that breakdown by race and ethnicity if folks are interested. So I'm really excited about this provision and hope that it will move forward. And if there's more questions about that, I can speak to kind of our process on the Senate side. But I did want to ask Commissioner Olson if you could just speak to the conversations that OHE's had around student parent priority registration with the institutions.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Umuver-Brayton. And I believe this may tee up a potential amendment you're considering. We have been in conversations with the Minnesota Private College Council this morning, as well as with our student parent and whole family coordinator, considering some clarifying language just to help improve the language on both the House and the Senate side. So maybe I'll get a little specific here if that's okay, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so on page R4, on Senate line 5.27, and the complementary House line 4.1, between the letter A and medical, so institution has a medical leave or temporary, and so on, recommended inserting student, and that was a clarification that came from leaders at the Private College Council, just to help distinguish between a student policy and a policy that may impact staff or faculty. Wanted to make sure that that was specifically referencing student there, so we would consider that helpful and friendly. And then in terms of making a more, I think, clear line from what's expected of the public institutions and private institutions, looking at the following page on page R5, making that same change in Senate language on line 6.15, inserting student between A and medical. And then to the more substantive change I was just alluding to, starting on line 7.5, where it talks about public post-secondary institutions, and then the Minnesota State Board of Trustees and the request of the Regents of the University of Minnesota, also including private institutions in that language as well, again, to create one uniform standard. And that was something that was agreed upon, or something that was non-controversial between us and Private College Council leadership. So it'd be helpful to us, Mr. Chair, members, and them as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Anything further, Senator Umuver-Brayton? Okay, further questions for Commissioner Olson? Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Olson. Just looking at R14, the House-only position that strikes the exemption of accreditation reports for allowable disclosures to law enforcement or in connection with litigation. Are there differences with the Senate position, or are you comfortable with the language as is?
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Fateh, can you repeat that second part? Am I comfortable?
With the language.
Senator Fateh. Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So on R14, and apologies, may I get a line item or a line, either Senate or House line number?
Senator Fateh.
Yep, on the House 13.23 through 14.3.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Fateh. Yeah, this, we prefer House language here to make that strike through except for accreditation reports. This is essentially in reference to, a conflict in law that already exists. We're essentially removing the conflict. There's a place later on where, it instructs us that we can. Here it says it instructs us that we can't. So essentially removing that conflict in law.
Anything further, Senator Fateh?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Commissioner. And same question for R31, which is lines in the House side, 29.22 through 29.31.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Fateh. Here, this is a spot where maybe Mr. Hopkins could help or research could help, because this is where we would prefer actually Senate language, and had made an attempt actually to have the two provisions that you referenced almost mirror each other. The Senate language is preferred because it specifies pursuant to a subpoena or judicial warrant, rather than the House line 29.27 that just references to law enforcement officials. Again, the clarification of pursuant to a subpoena or warrant would be preferred. And so if both in how they're written could mirror each other, that would be preferable. But if not, for this particular section, the Senate language is preferred. They're doing almost the same thing.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Anything further, Senator Fateh? All right. Any further discussion or questions for Commissioner Olson? All right, thank you very much. Oh, Representative Rarick has another question. Representative Rarick.
You know I do. So on R32, which is the House language 30.1 through 30.15, there's a slight difference between the House and the Senate language. This has to do with the Private Career or School Act. License renewal and application portion. Does the administration have any preference between the House and the Senate language?
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick. Again, this is one where I may need to defer to research. It looks like House language may have been repeated. I think this was a procedural difference in how the Senate approached the composition, or kind of putting the bill together, where Senate language is kind of repeated twice a little bit there. So it really is kind of either or. I believe it's pretty much the same language.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the difference might be whether or not the renewal fee is refundable or not. If you could speak to that.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick. My apologies. I didn't realize that's what you're referencing. Yeah, so the refundable or non-refundable strike-through was an amendment made in finance by Senator Pratt. There was conversation around the fees that we were collecting or proposed to collect through our licensing and registration division. This is kind of a provision that, honestly, we could go either way. It doesn't really change our practice. There have been rare instances where we have refunded fees. If an institution was waiting long and maybe sent in a secondary fee, we would return that. And so, we have refunded. Inserting non-refundable it doesn't really make a difference. I'd prefer it not be there, but it doesn't do anything to change practice.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Olson and Representative Rarick. Are there any further questions for Commissioner Olson? All right, thank you very much, Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, are there any other members of the public who wish to testify on House File 4252? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wondered if Mr. Oman would come forward. I'd like to have him talk about the Senate proposal on blood donations.
Mr. Oman, please make your way to the testifier table.
And then I'm also going to ask the U to come forward and talk about the athletic fees.
All right, if Mr. Chelseth would also make his way to the testifier table. Mr. Oman, welcome to the Higher Education Conference Committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Chair Wolgamott, Chair Fateh, members of the committee, as it relates, maybe just step back from the entire language that's in the House and the Senate. I'm very pleased to say that working with many of you and people that have authored legislation, that we were able to work out our concerns, and we don't object to any of the language that is in the bill. We don't have any historical reference to why Minnesota State was exempted from this language. I think it would be something along the lines of it was either boilerplate language that used to get adopted, or it could have been maybe somebody authored the bill that didn't want to go through higher ed. It could be something as simple as that. As it relates to blood drives, if many of you are on our campuses all the time, if you just take a look at any of the bulletin boards, we do blood drives pretty much at every single campus all the time. And we have not had instances where people have been denied or rejected or, told, there could be certain, obviously if it came by way of MAPE, there must have been something that triggered it, but we don't object to the language that is in there, because we think the way we are going about doing that, working with our students and student groups and all the organizations on the campuses, that we have a very, I think, robust blood drive network that we participate in.
Thank you, Mr. Oman. Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Oman. So because this language wasn't heard in the House, it just raised some questions for me. I strongly support blood drives. I'm a frequent donor myself. But, I mean, we already have earned sick and save time. We already have paid family leave. Do we need 3 more hours of paid leave for an additional reason?
Mr. Oman.
Chair Wolgamott, Representative Robbins, I really don't have a clear answer to that question. I think that the work that's currently being done with the network that we have, certainly, doing the blood drives on the campus is probably the most productive use of time. But again, if there are certain situations with, we have a network of 15,000 employees across the state, and if there's somebody that wants to participate and feels that they need this to do that, we're happy to comply. When we were asked for a fiscal note, it's impossible to do a fiscal note on something like this. You have to make so many assumptions, but after thinking it through, we just didn't see a significant reason or a financial reason to object to the language. And again, I'm guessing that back when this was created, there was just times where Minnesota State being exempted was boilerplate language, and not to bore you with the history of why, but there were times when different committees like state government would say Minnesota State and the University of Minnesota shall reduce its budget by X amount of dollars in things like your carpool. Well, we were like, hey, we're already over in the higher ed committee making our budget reduction, so we're kind of getting a twofer when it came to going the wrong way as it relates to the budget. So that's probably where it happened, but we're happy if this language goes forward, and if it doesn't, we think we still have a very strong network of work that happens on the campuses, and primarily I believe that work is driven by our local student governments.
Yes, they do a great job. Thank you.
Representative Robbins, anything further?
No, I think that covers it. I'm glad to hear there wasn't a fiscal note because I was going to ask about that next. Thank you.
I believe that we have another question for Mr. Omen. I recognize Senator Putnam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Omen, is it fair to say with this this blood drive sort of time situation that I appreciate your acknowledgement that it does seem kind of strange that that exemption exists in the first place and no one really knows its provenance? But I also ask is, in terms of the current situation, isn't this more sort of a fairness of equivalence or consistency issue potentially?
Mr. Omen.
Chair Wolgamott and Senator Putnam, I just don't think it's that. When it's all said and done, if there's one or two people out there that maybe is in a situation where they're in a totally work from home environment and aren't able to connect up, we just don't know. And I mean, it's, again, I think the language there was not done. I don't think that exemption there was, it was given a lot of thought because honestly, I date myself, but I certainly would have been lobbying on this and I would have remembered being against blood drives.
So, Mr. Omen, this was in the 19th century.
What's that?
This was in the 19th century in the Social Society?
This was, and we are pro-blood drive, Senator.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. Omen? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. Omen, and to the university as well. Moving on to the language about the athletic fees in R2. It's recommended to the university and going to be required of Minn State that you must not impose or maintain any mandatory student fee or increased tuition for the purpose of compensating student athletes. So will that, to Minn State, affect your student athlete participation or cause any sort of additional harm? I don't know what your current practice is. And to the U, I know we can't mandate anything on you, but with the NIL situation, if you could just talk to how that will affect you.
Representative Robbins, who is that for?
First, Mr. Omen, and then the gentleman from the U.
Mr. Omen.
Chair Wolgamott and Chair Robbins, Minnesota State, hosts, is home to many student athletes across our system, primarily at the Division III and Division II level, which is a different world than obviously that the NIL has been targeted to. We currently have 3 Division I hockey teams, one at Bemidji, one at St. Cloud State, and one at Mankato. But this provision, from what the conversations that we have had on our campuses, the dollar amounts are more driven by way of scholarship, and we're just not, we're not competing. We are in those three campuses in that one sport, but the world of NIL is not that profound, doesn't profoundly affect our campuses. It's more based on the student athlete, or it's a student athlete, emphasizing the student first. We're just in a different place.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you. So just to be clear, you don't currently use tuition for your athletic scholarships, and this would not impact that?
That, Chair Wolgamott, Representative Robbins, Chair Robbins, that is correct, and funds that are driven through the private philanthropy and the foundations. It's frankly, and if you look at our campuses, and particularly those 3, it's one of the areas. It's never easy raising money, but it certainly is a way to, it's a strong case statement that those campuses have to raise the necessary money to do so.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you. And to the University of Minnesota.
Mr. Chelseth, welcome to the conference committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Wolgamott and members. Andrew Chelseth, Government Relations with the University of Minnesota. Representative Robbins, to your question, the university does not currently use tuition or student fees for athlete compensation through NIL. The university did implement recently a new facility fee $100 a semester for students on the Twin Cities campus taking over 6 credits. It is a facility fee, but please do not, we do not bond for university athletic facilities through the state. And it is a way of managing upkeep expenses for those facilities on campus. So,
Mr. Chair.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you. So the facility fee is not used to compensate athletes in any way?
Mr. Chelsea.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Robbins, that is correct.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you. So if neither the U or Minn State are doing this, I guess my question for the Senate is, why are we needing this language?
Would anyone from the Senate like to answer that? Senator Fateh.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. This was brought on the Senate floor by Senator Abler, and we adopted it as a friendly amendment.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you.
It was a
Follow up with
bipartisan
him.
bill. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, members, do we have any further questions for Mr. Oman or Mr. Chelsea? I recognize Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Ullman. I just wanted to clarify, is it true that you have a 40-inch vertical, Mr. Ullman?
Mr. Oman.
Well, Chair Wolgamott and Chair Fateh, thank you for asking me the question about the $1.5 million in appropriation for GO students, and want to know Minnesota State sincerely appreciates consideration that your Senate colleagues could give to the House position on that provision.
Fair enough. All righty. Thank you, Mr. Oman and Mr. Chelsea. Okay, members, any further discussion or further testimony from members of the public? Or do members have any questions for members of the public? All right. Welcome to the Higher Education Conference Committee. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My name is William Luther. I'm the Director of State Affairs, the undergraduate student government at the University of Minnesota. Just kind of comments on R2, the athletic fee. I know Chair Robbins, you talked about, there's a brief discussion that it wouldn't apply to either Minnesota State or University of Minnesota. And of course, the University of Minnesota is recommended. Just kind of give you context, the $200 athletic fee was placed on students last year. And it does go towards facilities, but we would like the language to be changed where it would also be facilities would also count towards that. This fee has been very unpopular with students at the University of Minnesota, and so our philosophy is that a student fee should benefit students. Most athletic facilities students cannot use, and so we would like to see the university change course on the athletic fee. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. All right. Are there any other members of the public who wish to provide testimony? All right. Members, are there any further questions or discussion? Representative Rarick.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if there's anyone in the public that could speak to R2, which is the developmental courses. That's the language that we added in the House. I don't see anyone. Okay. I was just hoping to have a little public testimony as to why we added that. We had quite a long discussion in the House about that portion, about how developmental courses that don't apply to actually graduation, but they are being paid for, is incredibly burdensome and confusing. So I'm hoping that the Senate would be willing to adopt that. It's a very narrow portion of the bill that we had heard. It's just basically informing students that you're taking a course that you're not going to get credit for towards graduation. It's just that simple. There were more components when we had this bill in the House, but I think these are the portions that were most easily accessible for everybody and easy to implement, easy to understand, easy to implement. So this is the portion that got into our bill. So, and then the other thing I would say too is, I don't know if Mr. Oman wants to speak more to it, but the portion about GO students and making sure that we don't have fraud within the Minn State system. And we have a small appropriation that is on the House side that we would love to see go forward. Is we really do want to deal with people stealing money from our systems and from students. So, and there's a small appropriation also for Bemidji State University for replacement of trees And I just want to say that if Melissa Hortman was still here, I think she'd be very happy for that appropriation because she certainly loved to plant trees. And so this will replace about 200 trees at Bemidji State after they had a devastating storm that knocked down over 200 very mature trees. And of course, they're known for being in the woods, and they no longer are. So this would go a long way. Also, we are looking at doing a partnership between the University of Minnesota and their forestry or their development of new trees in Duluth. That's a specific tree that's fast growing and will climatize very well to Bemidji State. So it's a low cost, it's a collaboration, and it's only $5,000. So I'm hoping that the Senate would adopt that as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. Is there any other discussion? Senator Fateh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. For the developmental courses, I think that's something that Senator Duckworth also brought. Similarly, we're also happy with the House language. So if Chair Rarick would also like to make a motion to accept it, we'd be happy to.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also move that motion to accept, it would be R2, the developmental courses.
Representative Rarick moves the adoption of the R2. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved and the R2 is adopted. All right, is there any further discussion from members? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In light of the testimony from the student from the U, I'd like Mr. Chelseth, can't read my own writing, to return. I have another question.
Representative Robbins, please proceed with your question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chelseth. So my understanding from the students' testimony is that this is not popular and a lot of students don't have access to some of these athletic facilities that really serve our incredible student athletes at the U. So I just wondered, why can't the U use some of the money generated within the athletic program to cover these fees?
Mr. Chelseth.
Chair Wolgamott, Representative Robbins, thank you for the question. I would say that, and we appreciate the testimony from the student body, and those students are in contact with the administration on a regular basis about these issues. I would say that the fee and how those facilities are maintained, how that is paid for is an ever-evolving discussion. I believe that our big athletic department runs a very lean budget. I think it's 15th out of the 18 schools in the Big Ten. So it's a constant evaluation of how best to maintain those facilities. And I would just add that our athletic facilities are used by more than just our student athletes. They are used by, during our welcome week ceremonies and some for commencements, and there are other academic classes that sometimes take place in some of them. So not to discount at all the concerns and the comments of our students, but I do just want to say that it is used by more than just our scholarship athletes, but it's an ongoing conversation, and I think folks are always willing to think about and talk about new ideas on how to maintain these facilities.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you for that. What is the total amount generated by that $200 per student fee, roughly?
Mr. Chelseth.
Chair Wolgamott, Representative Robbins, that's a very fair question that I don't have an answer for you right now, but I can get for you quickly.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you. Yes, I think we'd be interested in seeing sort of the total amount and how it's being spent. My look at the U's budget over the years has seen a lot of growth in administration and salaries, and I think putting it on the backs of students when there are other potential ways we could pay for this needed maintenance is something we should be considering. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. Representative Rarick.
Before he gets up. I'm also looking at R42 and So R42 deals specifically with the University of Minnesota, and it has to do with prohibiting for-profit entities from developing, managing, or otherwise controlling curriculum at the medical school. And also there is a report. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that and let us know, because we don't have that on the House side, but maybe let us know kind of where that came from and where the position of the University of Minnesota is on the for-profit part.
Mr. Chelseth.
Chair Wolgamott and Co-Chair Rarick. So this is language that I believe, as you say, is a Senate position. The university is neutral on this position. This emerged from a program that is now, I believe, winding down at the University Medical School. There was a partnership with a class and United Health Group, and it is something that our medical school has had looked at, but they are neutral in this position. They're fine with this language, so.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if any of our Senate colleagues have any input on why this is in the bill, and since it's kind of winding down, what was the impetus of this?
Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for your question. I think the bill came from Senator Mann. I think it was at the direction of when United Health Group was directing curriculum at the U, and that caused some discomfort. And so I think she might have had some conversations with the U as well before crafting the legislation as well.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I don't think this is needed. I would like to have this not be in the bill, just to kind of get that on the record. I don't know that this is a real issue anymore. It's very difficult, I think, for us as a legislature to put mandates or requirements on the University of Minnesota to begin with, and so I would be opposed to these two provisions under R42. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. Is there any further member questions or discussion? Were there any other members of the public who wish to testify? Seeing no further members of the public who wish to testify, and seeing no additional members from the conference committee who wish to ask questions or provide discussion, I will call upon Senator Fateh to provide us with a game plan for what we'll be up to tomorrow. Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. My hope was to go through some of the stuff discussed, both the Senate only and House only positions. But I was hoping that we can also do a walkthrough of those today so that folks know what they are, or at least know where folks lay on the Senate only and House only positions. If we can adopt things that people are comfortable with, sure. If not, then we can have more conversations tomorrow about that as well.
All right. Representative Representative Rarick.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one thing that we haven't discussed that maybe we could touch on today is the projected shortfall in FIG in the Fostering Independence grants. I don't know if Commissioner Olson would like to come up and just sort of let us know. This is sort of a late breaking thing that we didn't discuss in committee in the House or the Senate, but if Commissioner Olson could tell us a little bit about the shortfall that is now being projected for FIG, the Fostering Independent Grant Program.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Rarick. Yeah, the Fostering Independence Grant Program, as we continue to reconcile all kind of spring financial aid disbursements and prepare for those students who may take summer courses, we realize that there may be a limited availability for funds for summer. The Fostering Independence Grant Program is fairly unique in that it provides funding for eligible students up to the total cost of attendance at the institution that they attend. This can be, of course, 2-year institutions, 4-year institutions as part of Minnesota state system, University of Minnesota, including University of Minnesota Twin Cities. And there are a number of participating private institutions as well who have dedicated and committed additional funds to their students that are eligible for this program as well. So after reconciliation of spring payments in preparation for summer, we discovered there's about a $570,000 shortfall. The current appropriation is about $117,000 that we have still available. 17,000 of that is still committed to finalizing spring payments, which leaves about 100,000 for summer. So that plus the 570 is a total need for summer of about 670. And as part of the agreement, there are funds available for this summer term.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Olson. So if I remember correctly, it was about 1.8 million is the total shortfall for the summer and the fall. Do you have the numbers in front of you as to the enrollment increases so we can kind of see why that is? And I believe you had another factor that was pushing the cost up as well, the uptake of going to certain schools.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Rarick. Feel free to ask me follow-ups here if I miss this, but data we have available, there continues to be increased participation by eligible students in the program. So the program is now in its 4th year of implementation after creation by the legislature. In 2023, we had a total of 491 students participate. There was some pretty significant growth. The second year in 2024, we had 679 students take advantage of the benefit. In 2025, 709 students. And in 2026, this is just through fall and spring, so not yet counting unique students that may enroll in the summer, it's 728. So we continue to see increased participation, which of course, is the whole intent of this program. It is really good, but I believe the intent of your question, Representative Rarick, because this does consider total cost of attendance, it is a program that is sometimes difficult to project based on continued increases in cost of attendance at institutions year over year, as those costs, of course, related to tuition and fees, but also the increased costs for attendance overall. All of the non-related costs of attendance, aside from tuition and fees, continue to increase as well.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know this isn't anything that either of our chambers discussed because it's literally late breaking. We had some conversation privately, but I wanted the public to hear that as well, sort of where FIG is at. It's something that has been very successful. It is very, very targeted. These are kids that have come through the foster system, and they are wards of the state, for lack of a better term. And, it's someone that we've committed, it's a population that we've committed to. And so I wanted to get that on the record and part of the discussion moving forward of trying to figure out how we can help them moving forward. And so I know Senator Fateh had asked if we could move forward with some of the things that we agree on. And unless we need more discussion on some of these things, I'm fine with moving forward. We can have that conversation about moving forward with things that we can agree on, and then we'll figure out what we don't agree on and do what we do and come back again. And I do appreciate that we do all this in the public. I think it's really important for transparency for the public to see our conversations, our deliberation, just like this, the FIG information, so that we actually can hear that and have that conversation. So I appreciate the conversation, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. At this time, we will go through and take a look at the differentiating provisions and have discussion and adopt where we can agree. So the first item that we will bring up is Senate lines 2.2 through 2.11, the paid blood donation provision. Is there any discussion? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I would just like a little more time on this one. It might be fine, but since it's new to us, I want to have a little more time to think about it.
All right. Any further discussion on the paid blood donations? Seeing none, we will move on to Senate lines 2.12 through 3.27, the higher education attainment goal. Is there any further discussion to that? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy to see the increase in the goal, but this again is a new piece to us, and it sounded like they were bringing in more stakeholders with the P20 group, which is probably good, but I was surprised there's no fiscal note. Usually when you add people and collaboration, it leads to higher costs. So I have concerns that this is actually, in fact, not going to be budget neutral. And I also, I think we should meet our first goal, 70% first. My understanding from staff is that currently we're at about 60 to 63%. We haven't met the 70. So I'm happy to continue the conversation, but I'm not sure about this one either.
Any further discussion? Senator Omover-Baton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the only thing I would point to is that the goal that we did have was through 2025 that expired. And so the hope was to have another goal in place, so there's something that we could work towards. And OHE and the folks at the Minnesota P20 partnership, knowing that that goal was expiring, wanted to also do some work to ensure the new goal was more reflective of the conversations they were having with stakeholders. So that's why those additional changes were also made. I think it's important for us to have a goal. I think the changes are really helpful. And if we don't adopt an education attainment goal, we don't actually have one in place right now because the previous goal expired for 2025.
Any further discussion? Representative Rarick.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate, since I was here in 2015 when we did this, I was actually the vice chair of the Higher Ed Committee in 2015 when this went into effect and have been a part of those meetings. I'm not sure that we should go up to 75. We also haven't met the 70%. And there is a huge difference also between Caucasian and non-white. It's a little different. I mean, the Black American and Native American are really low. It's like in the 30s. So there's a huge disparity. And I know that tracking it's important. I mean, that's helpful. But I think I would like to just think about this a little bit more too and kind of look at the numbers of the change. And maybe tomorrow we'll have a different answer. But I'm not sure that jumping from 70 to 75 when we meet 70 is quite the right direction to go. I want an attainment goal. I just don't know what it should be. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to Senate lines 3.28 through 3.32, the athletic fees. Is there any discussion to that provision? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the conversation on this. It sounds like right now, neither the Min-State or the university is using the fees to compensate student athletes, so I think the concern is really around this facility fee. And so I'd like to wait until we hear from the U with how they're breaking down the costs before we make a decision on this.
Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we will move on to Senate lines 7.10 through 7.22, pregnant and parenting discrimination. Is there any discussion? Senator Omover-Baton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to see us adopt this provision. As I spoke to earlier and we heard testimony from Commissioner Olson, there are some minor changes that need to be made to this section to reflect the conversations that we've had they've been having, particularly with the Minnesota Private Colleges Council. And so I think council was working on an amendment, and there's some additional changes there. But I would like to see us adopt that provision.
Thank you. Any further discussion to this provision? Representative Robbins.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the changes that were discussed, inserting the language for a student policy. So I don't know if we'll do amendments tomorrow or.
Representative Robbins, if. Okay.
We'll do it tomorrow.
I guess
Sounds
our
good.
plan is we'll have the discussion today, and then we'll take action on it tomorrow. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to Senate lines 7.24 to 7.27, the requirements related to online program management companies. I recognize Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. This provision being in law is actually a carryover from, I think, a year or two ago, where we worked out some compromise language. This reflection or the extension, I'm grateful to Senator Fateh for and Senator Putnam for kind of working together and collaborating on. An additional 2-year extension helps out some colleges in member districts that are looking for a little bit more time to sort of come up with a plan or off-ramp this if that's going to be what they're ultimately required to do. That's the idea behind this provision. Thank you.
Any further discussion? I recognize Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am not supportive of this language. I was the House author of the OPM regulation bill. That was 2 years ago now. I almost said last year, but it was 2 years ago. And I'm familiar with the situation that this involves, and I don't believe that this language is necessary at this moment. And at any rate, I believe the exemption runs through 2028. So if there is indeed a concern, that we can always come back next year and address it then. But I am not comfortable supporting the language at this time.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we will move on to House lines 13.23 through 14.3. The Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act relating to public information. Is there any discussion to this provision? Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So after hearing OHE's, or the Office of Higher Education Commissioner's testimony that this language is preferred, I would accept this language.
Senator Fateh.
I'd like to move to adopt it, Mr. Chair.
Senator Fateh moves to adopt House lines 13.23 through 14.3. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved and the language is adopted. Our next provision is a differentiation that can be found on House lines 16.24 through 18.19 and Senate lines 23.5 through 24.32, Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act registration fees. Is there any discussion to this provision? Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, after testimony from the Office of Higher Education, it seems that they prefer the Senate language, unless he has a different opinion about that. Yes, he would like to come up, I think.
Commissioner Olson, please make your way to the testifier table. Commissioner Olson, please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick, my apologies, I may have misstated because this similar provision is, essentially a copy paste in two different similarly situated acts. The Senate language, particularly starting on 23.9, requiring an annual review, feels honestly a little redundant, and redundant to the language that is right above that in 23.7, where it states the office shall collect reasonable registration fees that are sufficient to recover but do not exceed. Essentially, what that language instructs us to do is to do that annual review anyway and make sure that the fees are sufficient but aren't, overcharged or anything that's unreasonable. So that's a practice we do already. This is redundant and unnecessary. So would prefer the House there with the small B to D renumbered section.
Representative Robbins.
Do you mean Rarick?
Excuse me, Representative Rarick.
That's okay, 2 Rs. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in light of the new testimony, then, I think we should move the House language, not the Senate language. I would make a motion to do that unless there's.
Is there any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree.
Representative Rarick moves the adoption of House lines 16.24 through 18.19. Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify that Mr. Hunter and I felt that the Senate language on line 23.11 was clearer than the House language on 16.28 there on R17. So if the motion could be amended to adopt the House language on R17 and to incorporate the Senate language on line 23.11, I think that would be ideal.
Okay. Representative Rarick, would you like to add to your motion?
Mr. Chair, I will move the motion that Mr. Hopkins just said.
Representative Rarick moves the adoption of House lines 16.24 through 18.19 while incorporating the Senate language found on line 23.11. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion is approved and the language is adopted. Representative Robbins.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I think maybe you misstated the motion because we're incorporating the language on 23.22 to 23.25 from the Senate language.
Mr. Hopkins, I tried to incorporate your motion as best as I could, but would certainly appreciate clarity. Mr. Hopkins.
Mr. Chair, I feel like the Conference Committee's intent here is pretty clear, and Mr. Hunter and I can make sure that any cross-references to paragraphs are cleaned up appropriately.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Anything further, Representative Robbins?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, our next provision can be found on Senate lines 26.17 through 26.25. Provision related to the Private Career School Act, licensure fees, and terms of service. Is there any discussion to the provision? Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm in favor of allowing these fees to be refundable. I think even if it's in a rare situation that, and it sounds like in practicality, it really doesn't make a whole lot of difference with how they implement this. But I would be in favor of adopting this so that those fees could be refundable.
Thank you, Representative Rarick. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to hear from Commissioner Olson if that's, thank you, Mr. Chair, if that's acceptable as well.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Fateh and Representative Rarick. Again, this doesn't make much difference to us, but if we had a preference, we'd prefer to not add or not strike non-refundable. It is just something consistent in terms of instructions. So not necessary language, but doesn't necessarily impact any current practice.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Do we have a motion to adopt? Mr. Hopkins.
So, Mr. Chair, I also wanted to point out that in this Senate-only section, there's that language about the Office of Higher Education reviewing the total amount of fees and the administrative cost of those fees, and the committee chose not to adopt that language when it previously heard similar things in the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. So it is possible to divide this section and adopt part of it, but not all of it, but just for the committee's information.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Is there any further discussion to this provision? All right. Our next provision can be found on House lines 29.22 through 29.31, the Private Career School Act licensure public information. Is there any discussion to the provision? Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd also like the Commissioner again to explain your position. Thank you.
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Fateh, here we prefer the specificity of the Senate language on 30.10 pursuant to a subpoena or judicial warrant, certainly a little more clear than House line 29.27, which says to a law enforcement official. So I prefer the specificity. So in this case, in the entirety, the Senate language would be preferred.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there any further discussion to this provision? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if you wouldn't just mind elaborating on that, Mr. Olson. So why do you prefer the Senate language? I understand it's a little tighter saying a subpoena or a judicial warrant, but is there anything else you could add? Otherwise, our language says to a law enforcement official. So what is your concern about that?
Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Robbins, and apologies, I'm not an attorney, but in this particular case, the language that's in the House version could, essentially be any law enforcement official that maybe knocks on the office's door looking for documents, whether they be an off-duty officer or. It basically just says we're turning it over at this point, rather than having the instruction of a subpoena or a warrant to do so.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With your permission, I'd like to ask Mr. Hopkins to just clarify our discussion on this in the House.
Mr. Hopkins.
So, Mr. Chair and members, the committee has already adopted on R14 of the side-by-side a change to the public information subdivision in the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act, which mirrors Section 42 of the House language on R31. So the House language has essentially already been incorporated into the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act by the conference committee. And so this would align the Private Career School Act with the Private and Out-of-State Public Post-Secondary Education Act. I also just wanted to point out that the previous provision, Section 41 on the House language at 29.15 on R31 of the side-by-side, and the Senate language beginning on 30.1, the committee has already adopted the Senate language in that different provision. It was a staff recommendation.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think keeping the Private Career School Act language aligned with the rest of what we've already adopted is important. So at least at this point, I would prefer the House language. So if we're not ready to make a decision, that's fine. But I just want to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robbins. Is there any further discussion to this provision? All right. Our next provision is a differentiation between House lines 30.1 through 30.15 and Senate lines 26.26 through 26.33, provision relating to the Private Career School Act, license renewal, and application. Is there any discussion to this provision? Commissioner Olson, do you have any thoughts on this provision?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm looking to Mr. Hopkins now to reconcile, because I do know, just like previous discussions here, we have some kind of language mirroring in both acts and want to stay consistent. This is similar to the discussion we had around striking non-refundable, as well as the redundant process and procedure for an annual review of fees. We feel that it is redundant and unnecessary on the Senate language.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there any member discussion to the provision? All right. Our next provision that we will take a look at can be found on Senate lines 39.12 through 39.18 regarding the University of Minnesota Regents and gubernatorial appointments. Is there any discussion to this provision? Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we prefer the House language that did not get passed in the House, but it would ensure that the recommendation from the Joint Legislative Committee, not just RCAC, is involved. So we were planning to bring an amendment tomorrow. So if you're willing to wait for that, we can have a further discussion, or we could have the discussion now. Chair Rarick?
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm okay with having a discussion once the amendment's ready as well.
I would agree. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to say, I think there's probably more agreement than disagreement in this. So once we have the ability to compare them side by side, I think it'll be a more productive conversation.
Any further discussion to that provision? All right. Our next provision can be found on Senate lines 39.19 through 39.25, University of Minnesota prohibition on curriculum control. Is there any discussion to that provision? All right. Representative Rarick, are you seeking recognition?
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Representative Rarick.
Yeah, I think I had said before that I would be opposed to this of, limiting with the University of Minnesota who they can engage with or who they cannot. And so I would be opposed to this amendment.
Any further discussions? Our next provision can be found on Senate lines 39.26 through 40.5. University of Minnesota Medical School Curriculum Reporting. Is there any discussion to the provision? Representative Robbins.
Thank you. I share Chair Rarick's concerns, and this is related, so I think, we will continue to oppose this one as well.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will now move on to House lines 40.25 through 41.3. Provision relating to unemployment insurance aid. Is there any discussion to the provision? Is there any discussion? Don't be shy. Representative Rarick.
I was just going to say, it's a House provision. We put it in, so I'm waiting to hear from the Senate what they think.
Yeah, we just like a little bit more context about the legislation, Mr. Chair. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm
Senator
sorry.
Fateh.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get a little bit more context around this, Chair Rarick, please?
Representative Rarick.
I'm actually going to have Mr. Hopkins kind of explain it. It's kind of in the weeds.
Mr. Hopkins.
So, Mr. Chair and members, when the unemployment insurance program was passed, the legislature created unemployment insurance aid to public post-secondary public post-secondary systems. So that aid goes to the Minnesota State colleges and universities. It also goes to tribal colleges. And the Office of Higher Education administers the unemployment insurance aid to the tribal institutions. This specific provision amended here deals with what happens when the appropriation the legislature has made to fund unemployment insurance aid is insufficient to cover the actual amount of unemployment insurance aid necessary as calculated under the statute. And it says that the Board of Trustees and currently the Office of Higher Education has to proportionately reduce the amount of aid to each eligible entity. The change in this section crosses out the Office of Higher Education so that they would not be required to proportionately reduce the amount of aid payment to each tribal college. I believe this came from the Office of Higher Education's agency bill. That's all the information I have right now.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Representative Rarick, is there anything else you wanted to add while you have the floor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, only if OHE wants to come up and because it was part of their policy bill.
Commissioner Olson, would you care to come up and further extrapolate on this provision as it was part of your policy bill? Commissioner Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Rarick. Yeah, this is simply a provision that creates a little bit easier process for us to administer. We've had very little uptake and participation from tribal colleges, and want to make sure that if the appropriation is insufficient, that we still have some flexibility to provide unemployment insurance aid to those that are still eligible and choosing to participate while not having to proportionally reduce each institution, because there are some that participate and some that do not.
Representative Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this must have been a later development from the OHE policy bill, so it just makes it easier for them. So that's the explanation. I'm just wondering if the Senate would concur with us.
Senator Fateh.
I would like a roll call. No, I'm joking. If Chair Rarick would like to motion, we'd accept.
Okay. Representative Rarick moves the adoption of House lines 40.25 through 41.3. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. The motion prevails and the language is adopted. Our next provision, and I believe our final provision, is can be found on House lines 41.4 through 44.15. Min-state appropriation. This is the GO student language, a new ongoing appropriation of $1.5 million in fiscal year 2027 for an identity verification system to combat enrollment fraud. Is there any discussion to the motion? Senator Fateh. Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to clarify around this language, the budget agreement, as leadership has signed it, is that it is not an ongoing appropriation for the GO student software. It's $1.5 million for 3 years. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
Thank you. All right. Further discussion to the provision, Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have an idea around this, but before that, I would like to hear from Mr. Ullman about some more context around this as well. Thank you, Mr. Ullman. This is something that we didn't hear in the Senate, so I'd like to hear about the need as well. Thank you.
Mr. Ullman.
Chair Wogamon, Chair Fateh, Bernio, Minnesota State Colleges. Craig Munson, who runs our security, is with us today to help explain the details, but maybe just a little context around the funding. What our request is, it's obviously an ongoing request, and as Representative Coulter mentioned, that the leadership agreement is one-time money. So whether that is something we can work with you on, if you would agree to language that would allow us to spend money in not only next fiscal year, but then in the next biennium, we would be able to, on-ramp this program. And I would say from the perspective of the legislative committee, that might be a good thing, because that would have us come back for the accountability that you would be looking for to make sure that this is working. But obviously, this being the only appropriation that is being discussed, and other items that might come in front of the committee, we'd just like to work with you over the next day or whatever it is to make sure that we can launch this program. But I will turn it over to Mr. Munson, if that would be okay with the chair and senator.
Yes, please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Craig Munson. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Minnesota State Colleges and Universities. And again, the funds requested would be used to purchase a commercial software-based system, and that largely automates our manual processes that we're doing day in and day out today. These funds would also go towards staff that would be needed to implement, maintain, and configure a system such as this, and that would be used to protect all of our 33 colleges and universities against the ghost student phenomenon that we have been seeing over the last several years.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much to the both of you. And so I guess my question is, how would that $4.5 million be spent? Would it be spent evenly over the first 3 years? Would we need to front load some of it to onboard staff or implement things, or how would that be used?
Mr. Munson.
Yeah, Chair Wolgamott, Senator Fateh, this would be used about $1.5 million per year. We would start by hiring some staff next fiscal year, and we would engage with a vendor. Those costs we came up with those dollar amounts based on what current vendors are charging, and we kind of averaged that out amongst the leading folks that do this work on a regular basis.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So $1.5 million would be sufficient for the first year. Is that correct, Mr. Munson?
Mr. Munson.
Representative, Senator, yes, that would be correct.
Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Munson, and thank you, Mr. Ullman. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so this is something I spoke with Senator Duckworth about, who I think is also on his way. And so we do have an issue with FIG. We do have, I think we got $570,000 that was allocated in the global agreement. And the idea that we had is that if we're able to pull $1.8 million away from the software program, we're still able to have it funded for almost 2 years, and then revisit further funding it next year so that we can plug in $1.8 million in for FIG for this year. And so I wanted to present that to the committee, so that way, knowing that $570,000 is only enough for the summer, and then the students would be left out in the fall and spring, we can cover both the software as well as our students for the upcoming year.
Mr. Ullman.
Chair Wolgamott and Chair Fateh, I understand exactly where you're going with the conversation, and just so you know, I think it'd be important to at least have 2 years for us to be able to launch this program, because part of the launching of it is not only the software but the people side, and to have somebody come in and hire somebody with this type of expertise, and then the funding goes away in a year would be caution for us. So as we are having this discussion, or this committee is having discussion, that would be a plea to at least look at it at a minimum of 2 years. And obviously we prefer the ongoing piece, but there's no doubt that, if we know we can come back to the legislature, but that's not a great strategy when you're building your personnel infrastructure, and then you're sitting there in the recruitment mode and the funds run out. So we'd like to have somewhat of a runway.
Thank you, Mr. Oman. Senator Fateh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Oman, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the idea that we had would be not the full, but most of the second year, so you'd still have 1.2 million to pull in for the first year. Our goal was to make sure that that first year is successful, and then revisit it and then plug in however much we can for the ongoing support for that program. But our goal is to make sure that both the software and our students are protected, and so that was the idea behind it.
Thank you, Senator Fateh. Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it, and thanks for the information that you both have provided. And Senator Fateh, I think you raise a good point. And unfortunately, when we have only so many funds, we have to kind of look at the different trade-offs and whatnot. I think you raise a good point, though, which is it's worthy of discussion to see offline continuing back and forth between both sides of the aisle, both chambers, about what is allotted and you know, what can we do realistically, what makes sense as we plan for the future, and also try to help certain programs that are certainly worthy of help as well. So I don't think anybody's probably ready to commit to anything, but what I do hear is a willingness to be open to that discussion and see where we may find ourselves.
Thank you, Senator Duckworth. Any further discussion to this provision?
Mr. Chair,
Senator Fateh.
I'm open to Mr. Oman and Senator Putnam arm wrestling over it, so.
All right, tune in tomorrow for the arm wrestling match. All right, that concludes the differentiated provisions of our bill. I will, before we adjourn, just one more time, give the floor to Senator Fateh to provide a roadmap for members of the committee and members of the public of what we can expect with you having the gavel tomorrow. Senator Fateh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think we had a really good discussion today. We've, I think, identified some key areas where there's still a little bit of disagreement, but I think in a lot of them we're pretty close together. So we're gonna, hopefully, members can bring their amendments tomorrow. We can have those discussions, and then we're meeting at 3 p.m. in this room? Yes. In this room tomorrow. So 3 p.m., 1100.
Thank you, Senator Fateh. Any other discussions or announcements? Okay, there being no further business before this committee, we are adjourned.